Hello, hello. You're welcome to the Overcoming Infertility podcast. As always, it's a pleasure to have you here. And we're starting a series of guest interviews. And I'm starting off today's episode with a dear friend of mine. Her name is Oluwafunke Iroko, and Funke for short. She is a development practitioner and a mother of two amazing children. She has experience spanning government, civil society, consulting, and she champions alternative financing pathways beyond traditional aid to unlock sustainable development across the African continent. Oluwafunke is the co-founder of Benetherapy Hope, a platform accelerating innovative funding solutions for local African development actors. And her contact details will be in the show notes. So, my dear Funke, thank you for joining me on the show. It's very good to have you.
Thank you, Anu, for having me. Hello, everyone.
Hi, it's good to see you. As you know, the point of this podcast is to share my own experience and learnings that I actually learned and things that I wish I knew. And that's just my own journey. So there's nothing as amazing to me as having somebody else share their journey with our listeners. So I'm so grateful that you're here. Thank you.
And thank you for having me. I'm really proud of you. And every day you're just evolving to becoming this amazing woman, shedding all your onion layers. But I'm really glad to do this with you, because it was such a personal experience, and I don't think I would be comfortable doing it with anyone else but you. So I'm super happy to be doing this.
Thank you. So let's get right into it. I would
Fun
like for
fact,
you to please. Oh, fun fact. Okay, go ahead.
yes, I've known Anu since primary two. She's been my best friend since primary two. And not only that, she's been my best friend since forever. She was my chief bridesmaid.
Yes. I was looking at those pictures recently, actually. We're so young
Oh,
and fresh
really?
and happy.
I
Mm-hmm.
know, we're fresh though.
Yeah. And now, experienced, we have a lot of notches on our belts.
In fact, highly
And
experienced.
yeah. Yes, so I've known you. So, how also, for those that don't know, primary two is equivalent to grade two, for
Oh,
the North
yeah.
American listeners. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
So, we're really young when we first met. And and look at us now. So, my dear Funke, yes, I've known you for a long time, and so because of that, I really trust what you're going to share with us, and I know time has passed, so you may not be so vulnerable anymore, but still, it's quite something to share. Such intimate stories. So please take us through your journey, particularly your experience going through miscarriages.
Great. Thank you, Anne, for that. Really grateful once again for, allowing me to share this here with you. Okay, so I got married 2008. Then we decided I will start trying for children in 2010. And when we were going to start that journey, you generally believe that, I'm just going to get pregnant and give birth. Nobody
Mm-hmm.
goes into marriage thinking, oh, it's going to be difficult. So anyway, I get pregnant and I'm like, oh, I'm so excited and all of that. And we go to the hospital, a popular hospital in Bagada, Lagos. I will not mention their name because I was thoroughly disappointed with the way they managed the whole situation. So, anyways, we go to the hospital and they say, oh, they cannot find any sac. And I'm like, how can the pregnancy test say I'm pregnant and the your
The
ultrasound you can't see
ultrasound.
anything? Yeah. So that was the first confusion. So the following week after that happened, I started bleeding. So I went back to the hospital.
Mm.
I'm like, I'm bleeding. The doctor, elderly man, very old. He literally gave me a lecture about how he's been there, done that, and bleeding is absolutely normal. And here is my physiotherapy brain, my medical brain thinking, "Ah, I'm not sure it's normal. Oh." Of course, Google is everybody's friend. So I went to Google, say, Google, come and
Mm.
save me. Oh." So Google, of course, shows that even if you are bleeding, it shouldn't be like menstruation sort of
Mm-hmm.
bleeding.
Mm-hmm.
I I'm like, but I go back again, they check ultrasound, no baby. So at this point, I'm already getting worried. So another what do you call them again? Radiologist then
Mm-hmm.
came, and they brought them, I suppose it was a more um how do you call it, a more advanced equipment, and he
Okay.
checked, and he said to me that it looks like some sort of blighted ovum or something, but
Okay.
that he can see something. So this was beginning to get
Okay.
worrying, and I was bleeding heavier each day. Eventually, I reached out to, when I got tired of the back and forth and nobody seemed to be giving me any answer. And I think the major confusion was that every time I went back to the hospital, we would do the HCG test. It will say positive. Then ultrasound,
Mm-hmm.
they will not see anything. Or they will say, oh, it's a blighted ovum. And it was just so confusing.
Mm.
So eventually I said, okay, maybe what we can do is, seek for a second opinion. So I reached out to another O&G doctor, a female this time, that she was at Luth, and she's still at Luth. Amazing woman. I've
Okay.
known her for years. So I reached out to her and she was like, okay, come and see me. And without even checking, immediately I told her, she said, what you have is an ectopic pregnancy. And I said, okay, how
What?
did
You had
a
an
whole,
ectopic.
yes, it was an ectopic. And I was in shock. I was like, how can a whole seasoned O&G elderly surgeon, miss that completely. And he just kept telling me, oh, it's a blighted ovum and all that.
And I
So
wanted
I
to ask,
immediately,
please. So, all the while when you were with the first doctor, you had been in and out of hospital. So you were like a day case going in and out as opposed to being on
yes,
admission.
yes, I was going in and out. So, so after this, she now said,
Mm.
let's explore this further with another doctor. So she reaches out to one of her friends, and she was very thorough. Reaches out to one of her friends who is in St. Nicholas Hospital and says I should go there. So I go to this guy. I repeat, my history. Explain to him,
Mm-hmm.
and the first thing he says to is, "Oh, you've got an ectopic." And I'm like, why didn't somebody say this to me? Now, let me backtrack a bit. I had been bleeding for 3 months. I had stayed with these people like Bagada with the back and forth for 3 good months. In fact, at that time, I was part of an organization that was a performing arts organization, and we would, preach the gospel in dance, going around the country. We had gone on a tour to South Africa, and um, I was the lead on that tour. And you won't believe that I had been dancing, jumping up and down, doing all of these things. And I didn't know had an ectopic, which was really dangerous. I had just gone ahead with the information from my doctor that, oh, it was just, they probably couldn't see it. I'm still pregnant. I'll be fine. So, fast forward, um,
And all this while, Funke, just to clarify, all this while you were
yeah,
still bleeding.
I was living for 3 months. I had been assured that it was nothing. I would be fine. It would normalize. It's part of
Mm-hmm.
first pregnancies. It can happen with first pregnancies, and all of this time I was not sure as well. But I just kept thinking, okay, this is Oluwafunke, a surgeon who is advanced many years in practice. Surely he knows what
Yeah.
he's saying.
So you trusted
So
him, yes.
I trusted him, and I was going about my daily activities. And really, it was a miracle, that God kept me. So I go and see this other doctor at St. Nicholas. And at that time, he had just come from the US. So I sit across the table. He doesn't even let me finish. He just says, get on the table. I get on the table. He examines me. He brings, of course, they have more sophisticated equipment. He brings something. And upon examination, the bowl of blood that he brought us. In fact, I almost passed out. And he said, Madam, please call your family members. You are not leaving this hospital. In fact, you will not leave this bed without us taking out this ectopic. And, he was quite shocked. He said, how many months have you been bleeding? I said, 3 months. And he said, you traveled, you danced, you were jumping up and down. I said, exactly. And he said, it's a miracle you didn't drop dead. And this thing didn't
Yeah.
burst.
Yeah.
So I'm there in shock. I call my parents, I call my husband. They get on the call. Everybody rushes down to the hospital. I'm like, whoa, what happened? And she has to have surgery now. We have to go in now,
Mm-hmm.
right away.
It's an
So
emergency.
yeah,
Yep.
yes, emergency. So that's how it went. We got into the admission room. He did the surgery. It was the scariest thing ever because, so first thing, I mean, I'm a Christian. I believe in Jesus. Jesus is Lord. And it
Yeah.
was just Jesus that saved me because after the surgery, they show me the, so I mean, I don't know all the terms. The equipment they used was some high tech equipment. So it was just a small incision just under my navel.
Mm-hmm.
And because it was on the left, it was the left fallopian tube they took out.
Okay.
So
This was
he
a
made,
laparoscopic surgery.
thank you, my doctor. So So, so he showed me the what they took out, of course, after surgery. The fetus had eyes. I tell you, I saw it clearly. It had eyes. It had been growing inside the fallopian tube. So it was a 3 month old baby in the fallopian tube. And the
Wow.
doctor just kept saying, I have never seen this before. A fetus,
Mm-hmm.
a 3 month old fetus in the fallopian tube, and the tube did not burst.
Yeah.
And you were
Yeah.
jumping. You were not, your lifestyle was not then, you remember now. I was
Mm-hmm.
short
Yeah.
of, professional dancing at that time. I was
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
I was doing 8 to 10 hours of rigorous, intensive dancing
Yeah. Every day.
every day, at least for those 3 months. And he just kept saying, God loves you. You are blessed. Like people with even 2 weeks ectopic can burst
Yes.
and they
Usually
can
from
die.
6 weeks. Exactly.
3 months old. I can't forget those eyes. Anyways, God be praised. So they took it out with the fallopian tube. I was very distraught. I cried, cried, cried,
Mm-hmm.
cried, bucket. And then with all the bleeding. Anyway, after the surgery, the bleeding stopped, of course. And
Mm-hmm.
as the bleeding stopped, I mean, grateful to God. Thank you, Jesus, for deliverance and for help.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that passed. And he had told me that, what, with one fallopian tube, it's a 50-50 chance. You'll get pregnant, but don't push
Mm-hmm.
it, don't stress it. It may take a longer while.
Mm-hmm.
Kiniko. So just expect your next period and all of that. So
Mm.
I said, well, there's nothing my God cannot do. There's nothing like 50-50. My own is 100.
Yeah.
So fast forward 1 week, 2 weeks. So he said, expect the period in like a week to two. 1 week passed, 2 week passed. We did not see the period. 3 weeks. I now went back to the doctor that, doctor, I did not see the period though. He said,
Mm.
I said, yes, I did not see the period. He said, okay, let me check you. And I said, okay, why don't we even do a pregnancy test? And I said, aren't you the one that said, pregnancy may not happen? He said, let's just rule out everything. Let's do everything.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we do pregnancy test. Lo and behold, it's positive. And he's like, he looks at me and he just says, Madam, you are truly a miracle. You are
Yeah.
truly a miracle. And I'm like, the Jesus I serve, he will never let me down. So that was the story. I mean,
Wow.
God was merciful. He didn't allow me to suffer beyond those 3 months. It didn't, I'm just
Mm.
grateful for that mercy because it's mercy. Mercy that I
Mm-hmm.
didn't die. Mercy that the
Mm-hmm.
mourning period and the sad period was not prolonged. He blessed
Mm.
me with another child when, the doctors were saying, oh, he's 50-50. God
Mm-hmm.
just, he did it. And I'm forever grateful for that mercy,
Mm.
that he showed me.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was it. I mean, I don't wish it upon anybody because that period from when, because up until the time I went to see the other doctor who gave me second opinion, then referred me to the doctor at St. Nicholas, I was still thinking that it was a baby, but I was just bleeding
Mm-hmm.
through it.
Yeah.
So it was when I went to see her that she said, no, this is an ectopic. They need to take it out. I was like, ah. That was when, the sadness started because before then, I was still faithing it and believing that even if I'm bleeding is nothing. My God, anybody can bleed.
Mm-hmm.
My baby is preserved. I was still, so all those 3 months, I was still in a place of faith that no, I still have a baby. So by the time I got to the doctor at St. Nicholas, who eventually did the surgery, I was, that was when, I was really devastated and really sad. But I also remember something. My dad of blessed memory now, can't forget, such an amazing man. He, I mean, my dad then does not do hospitals at all, hates
Mm.
hospitals, but he came and such a good daddy. You know what he did? Because on the phone I had told him this was what happened, and of course it was sad. That, oh, I'm so sorry that happened. And he said, how much is the hospital bill? And I told him, and
Mm-hmm.
my dad went to the hospital, sorry, bank,
Mm-hmm.
withdrew the money in cash, more than almost double what I told him the hospital bill was. And this was St.
Mm-hmm.
Nicholas. So put the money in a big
Mm-hmm.
brown envelope, came to the
Mm-hmm.
hospital to see me, comforted me, and gave me the envelope and said, take, don't worry, you'll be fine. If you need more, call me. And I was just like, oh, it was interesting because it was his way of saying, I love you, I got your back, don't
Mm-hmm.
be sad
Yeah.
about this.
Mm-hmm.
And something special that also God also did for me, the just before the surgery, because I slept there and the surgery happened the following morning. Just before the surgery, I was just praying and meditating, and a song came to mind. This song it's not even a Christian song. Is we then we'll dance samba to it. It's called Meshki Nada, but I mean it's translated as it's nothing. It's a Brazilian song that's in Portuguese. So
Okay.
the following morning, I wake up with that song playing repeatedly, just over and over.
Mm-hmm.
And before then, it was just a song we used to dance to during the dance training. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
wait a minute, what does this song mean? Why of all songs is this song the one playing in my head? So I go
Mm-hmm.
and I check it out, and what's the meaning of Mishkinada? And I realized that it means there's nothing. Don't worry about it. It's
Mm-hmm.
nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that
Mm-hmm.
was God's spirit that was telling her, don't worry about the surgery. It's
Yeah.
nothing. You'll be fine. You will have your
Mm-hmm.
baby. And
Mm-hmm.
he really gave me a peace. It gave me hope. So even when after the surgery, I was sad, I was crying, I would remember that word, Mishkinada, and I would,
Mm-hmm.
just rest in that hope. So it was a thing of joy, just a few weeks afterwards, finding out that,
Mm-hmm.
I was pregnant again. It was just a testimony that God's word, that it was nothing and he was on top
Mm-hmm.
of it. It was really true
Mm-hmm.
and it came through for me. So glory be to Jesus.
Wow. This is
Yeah.
there's so many elements that I can pick apart. So yes, I like your conclusion. Glory be to Jesus, because it's only him that could have done this sort of thing. You had an ectopic pregnancy that lasted 3 months,
Yeah.
and you survived it. Like, that doesn't happen. Maybe there are one or two other people across the globe, but
Mm.
It doesn't happen. People drop dead
Mm. Mm-hmm.
on a regular basis. Women die from ectopic pregnancies.
The emergency
And
though.
the usual presentation, yes, is that some many times the person just passes away. They just, because for those that don't know, you can check it out because it's very important to be aware of certain things. The lady would have a missed period because the pregnancy has happened. But the thing in an ectopic is that the pregnancy implants in the fallopian tube instead of implanting in the uterus.
Mm.
And so as it grows and the blood supply, begins to, the fallopian tube was not made to sustain
Mm-hmm.
the growth of a fetus. And so the
Mm.
blood supply eventually bursts, the fallopian tube bursts, and the person bleeds to death. And it happens really quickly.
Mm.
So
Mm-hmm.
for you in your own story to have had a fetus grow to the point of 3 months, where fast forward to the point that when the surgery happened, you could see the eyes and you could see the outline of, a baby,
Mm-hmm.
and your
Mm-hmm.
fallopian tube had not burst. You
Mm-mm.
had you had a slow, what they'd call a slow leak. For you to have been bleeding every day, yes, you were losing blood, you have had symptoms from that, you're living your normal life, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
because normally
Mm-hmm.
people just fall down and die. So that
Mm-hmm.
alone is just it's
A
amazing.
miracle.
It doesn't even make any sense. Yes, exactly. It's a miracle. There's no logic to it.
Absolutely a miracle. That was what the doctor said. He said, Madam, it is a miracle. What has happened to you that you have not dropped dead since. It is a miracle.
Wow.
Tell you.
Wow.
I tell you. I tell you.
I what I love is that for stories like this, we can look back and it's a story. It's a testimony. You can say this and that
Glory be
happened.
to
But when
God.
you were,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and he takes all the glory. But when you were going through it, it must have been
Yes.
confusing. It
It's
must have been
very
so
confusing. The
heartbreaking.
uncertainty. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, it's easy to blame the system, for missing that for 3 months. Because really it was missed. It wasn't until I went to another
Mm-hmm.
doctor that they caught it. So it's easy to blame the system. However, on the other hand, I also think that the agency of the patient is is
Mm.
also important. And if and something that taught me, if in doubt, seek a second opinion very quickly. You know, don't don't delay. If
Mm-hmm.
you've gotten the first diagnosis from someone and there's uncertainty, there's lack of
Mm-hmm.
clarity, take a
Mm-hmm.
second opinion very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Don't
Mm-hmm.
because some people are human. I was angry at the doctor for a long time, and in my head, I kept thinking I'm going to go and sue that hospital or sue the man or sue
Mm-hmm.
that particular doctor or something. But in the end, I was like, that is one way to go because that the system is that it can be
Could be
improved.
better.
But yes,
Mm-hmm.
can be better. But on the other hand, I have to also realize that I shouldn't have waited for 3 months. I shouldn't have
Mm.
you know stuck with these people in the name of they know what they're doing because the doctor is elderly.
Mm-hmm.
Once you sense that this thing is it's confusing even for the medical practitioner, take a second opinion.
Mm-hmm.
In hindsight, it was just so saddening that not even once in that 3 months period did I hear ectopic from them. You know,
Mm-hmm.
but all in all, like we said, thank God we are standing and we are here to the end. Post that awful experience, God has blessed me with two children. So, all glory.
Yeah. And immediately afterwards, you got your what people now term rainbow baby. So when you've had
Oh,
a
really? That's a rainbow baby.
yeah, yeah. So when you have a miscarriage, the next child that you have that makes it is usually called a rainbow baby.
Oh,
So it's
okay.
it's very common in fertility circles, I guess, but not
Um,
necessarily in religious circles. But it's definitely based on the fact that
mm,
we all know that the rainbow, God put the rainbow in the sky as a promise as he
Mm-hmm.
promised to
Yeah.
Noah that he wouldn't flood the earth again.
Yeah.
So that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
That okay, God's
Mm,
promise that you have your own children came
mm-hmm.
to pass.
Mm-hmm.
So they
Mm-hmm.
call them rainbow babies.
Yeah.
So that's another. We can unpack. There's so many things we can unpack, but we don't have enough time, you know. But so the learnings, I like the fact that you
Mm-hmm.
pointed out the fact that your own agency is very important. So
Mm.
if you have, so people should not ignore their own intuition. If you think there's something wrong, immediately seek help. If you have sought help and you haven't gotten the kind of, there's no conclusion. So if you're not comfortable, basically don't ignore your intuition as you access
Yeah.
healthcare. And basically, as anything is
Mm-hmm.
happening to you, don't ignore. Seek help and continue seeking help until you actually get the help that you need. Then, of course, I know for many of our listeners, especially those that are based in Nigeria, we know there are many issues with the healthcare industry. We cannot go there because that's a completely different topic. But it's also another reason why others may not understand if they don't live there. But we don't have a choice in terms of depending on God for very practical things. Because if you're not in a place of faith and of trust, and even if it's just hope, all that you have is just hope that God, please get me through this. Anything can go wrong. So you actually got the second opinion from the right person. You were able to get to the right hospital. You had a dad who was able to provide. Everything just worked together, for your good, even in the midst of all the pain and all the suffering and all the tears and the near death experience because you almost lost your life. So eventually, God crowned everything with your rainbow
Yeah.
baby soon after. Completely unexpected, despite what the doctor said. And even though the
Right.
doctor said 50-50 and you said 100, your 100 happened and you still didn't
Yes.
expect it.
Exactly. The doctor was expecting it.
Neither were
Was
you in terms of the timing. So God
yes,
exceeded your
I
expectations.
exceed way, way beyond my expectations. Way, and that pregnancy was really a rainbow baby because it was so smooth. It was
Hmm.
it was a lot of was a lot of fun. I had quite a bit of fun with that because everyone was excited for me, and I overate. I think she was when she was born. She was oh my gosh.
You
When she,
certainly like your food.
I love my food. When she was born, she was 4.35. I can't ever forget. And she was born. It had to be a
As a
CS, of course.
bouncing baby. Yep.
Bouncing baby, yeah. She looked like a big sack of red tomato when she was born. Red, I can't forget red tomato with long fingers licking her hands already. I was like, you came hungry. So it was such a lovely experience. During the pregnancy, I my biggest craving was Milo. So I don't even know how many things I was going through the big tin of Milo, one tin per week. Oh my gosh. Thick
One
syrupy
tin of
Milo.
hot chocolates. Oh.
Hot
Mm.
every evening. Very syrupy. In fact, that's once a day. It was just so that I would not burst. I had to control myself, just one a day, or else I would have been having it every other hour. So
You definitely enjoyed that pregnancy, that's for sure.
yes, it was. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. God makes all things beautiful in His time. So
Yes, he does. And you
yeah,
have two amazing children now. I can
yeah.
testify. I'm so glad for you. I'm so glad. And I'm so glad that you shared the story. Is there anything, as we round up now, is there anything in particular you would like to emphasize?
Well, I think one thing I would like to well say by way of encouragement is in the fertility journey it can be a hard one. It's I empathize with women who have gone through years and years of waiting for a child. I cannot even say that I know the full extent of that pain and that stress. But if there's anyone listening to this that is in that journey or has recently experienced the loss of a child, miscarriage, my encouragement is really to just hold on to the hope that if God made life, and you were born, because God is the maker of life, that same maker of life is able to give you the grace and the opportunity to carry life, because the devil puts thoughts in our heads sometimes where
Mm-hmm.
we begin to think that, oh, because you don't have a child yet, or because you're going through this journey, then you are not, you don't have the capacity, you are less than a woman, don't have the
Mm-hmm.
capacity to carry life. And it's not
Mm-hmm.
true. God
Mm-hmm.
is the giver of life, and he has chosen women to be the carrier of that life. And you, as long as you are a woman and you desire it, God can bless you with that grace and opportunity to carry life, and to
Mm.
hold on to hope, and to hold on to that word that the giver of life will find you, will give you the grace to carry
Mm.
life. And that's the encouragement. And not to be don't be discouraged. Just hold on to God. It's like I said, it can be really difficult and testy, especially in our culture where
Mm-hmm.
there's such high level of stigmatization just because
Mm-hmm.
women are not able to have children, and we hear all sorts of horror stories around
Mm-hmm.
that. But just to keep trusting God, that God is able. I think that's what I will close with.
Yeah, I like that. God is able. Thank you. Thank you so much for being on the show with us again, Funke. Thank you for sharing your
Thank you for
story. Thank you for
inspiring
the
all of us to
encouragement.
share our story, Anu.
Thank you. It's I don't feel like I've inspired anybody, but hey, it was just
You
such
did that.
a well, maybe I kind of forced you. I'm like, hey, if I'm out here, you have to join me. But yeah, but it's a big deal. So thank you. I don't take it for granted, and I know that the same God that did it for you, that did it for me, will do it for anybody who believes, who trusts, who hopes,
Mhm.
who calls on
Yeah.
Him. I have other podcast episodes where some of them are very specific in terms of enduring the trial of infertility, holding on to the word. That's where these messages come in, because when you're going through it, when you're actually experiencing it physically, whatever your it is, you need the word. You need God to get His word into you. Let it be your anchor, let it be your rock, so that when you're going through the storm of hopefully not an ectopic, but any kind of miscarriage,
Hmm.
just know that He will bring you through. The house of your life will
Hmm.
not fall, despite the
Amen.
storm of that.
Yeah.
Amen. And so thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Funke, for being here. God bless you.
Thank
And
you, Anu, for having me.
yeah, I'm sure that your story is going to help take our listeners from where they're at to where they ought to be. That's what I usually say at the end of every episode. I usually say that I hope
Great.
that, whatever message I've shared will take you from this point of your
Amen to
journey
that.
to the next point of your journey where you ought to be. I'm sure this one will do the same thing. And
I agree.
so we'll see
Amen to
you.
that.
Amen.
Thank you, Anu.
So we'll see you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Funke. Take care. See you soon. And to all our listeners and those that are watching, see you again on the next episode.